Hi, welcome to another video. Due to the current situation, it's been a bit more difficult to get out and about, and to be honest, I haven't really wanted to go out and about needlessly to film videos, obviously. So today's topic talks about something a little bit different to the last few videos that I've been talking about, but it's still very much two-wheel based, and that's talking about electric bikes. Now, this is something that, particularly with the current situation in the UK and around the world, it's something that a lot of people have perhaps started considering, or may not have even been aware that these things exist. And it's quite interesting because people are going to try and avoid, more than likely, public transport if they possibly can. And that means that the smallish commutes that you could have, so for example your 4 to 5 miles, maybe even up to 10 miles, might be doable on a bike. Now, I appreciate that a lot of people, if you're riding motorbikes, maybe you don't own a push bike, or if you do, maybe you don't own one that's in good working order at the minute. So it might be worth some consideration, first of all, of thinking about, well, if I cycle to work, have I got any shower facilities? Have I got any way of getting changed and getting presentable when I am at work? If I arrive at work, am I likely to be quite sweaty if it's a hot day? So all those things led me a couple of years ago to purchase an electric bike. So first of all, what is an electric bike? Well, simply, it is a bike with an electric motor. Okay, now they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, whether it is ones that are hub driven, so they're in the rear wheel, some even have front wheel drive, if you like, and some have a mid drive where it connects to the actual cranks, the pedals. And they all have pros and cons, and this is not the video to go into which one you should buy and why. This is more just is an electric bike for you, really, and would you consider it? So the electric bike has a few main components. Motor, as I've talked about, obviously the battery is a big part, and then it has a controller, and that's normally linked to a sensor that detects when you're pedaling. Now in the UK, legislation changed in between when I bought my bike and how it is now. So when I bought my bike, it was legal to have a throttle. In other words, you could, just like on a motorbike or a scooter, you can twist the throttle and you can accelerate away. So mine has that throttle. However, now it has to be power assisted. In other words, you pedal and the bike helps you when you pedal. If you don't pedal, you don't get any assistance, and the maximum speed that the motors can run up to in the UK and indeed Europe is 15.5 miles an hour, and it puts out a maximum of 250 watts for the motor. Now, to put that into context, 250 watts is like having an athlete pedaling for you. So that is the same as having a very, very fit person helping you get up the hill that you're trying to get up. So it does really, really help. However, in other places around the world, like America, then there is I think it's about a 750 watt limit in some states, and in some places around the world there are no limits, so you can have 1500, 2000 watt motors, and obviously those are much, much faster, like really fast, like almost motorbike fast really. So a couple of things to consider. In the UK, you're going to get a 250 watt motor. You're also going to get the ability to use it when you pedal. Some bikes perhaps might allow you to fit an aftermarket throttle, but strictly speaking in the UK, that is not within the regulations. Once you start fitting things like throttles, or you de-restrict your bike, that then becomes effectively a scooter or a moped, and it needs tax, it needs type testing, all those sorts of things, insurance, helmet, although I would recommend wearing a helmet anyway, but obviously not a full motorcycle helmet when you're on a push bike. You'd look a bit of a berk, wouldn't you? So who are they aimed at? Well, I suppose this kind of links in quite well with the current situation. Like I said, they're not necessarily aimed at people who are, too frail to use a normal pedal cycle. They are aimed at people who want to have some assistance whilst they're pedaling. They're also a really good bridging mode of transport whilst you're getting fitter, because you can choose how much assistance that bike provides. So if you want to, you can have the assistance down on nothing, and you can pedal everything, and that's a real workout because the bikes are a lot heavier because you are carrying a big battery and a motor around with you. Or you can have maximum assistance or anywhere in between, and that just means that it just adjusts how much assistance there is from that motor. And that really is the crux of it. For me, my commute is about 12 miles. It's doable on a normal bike, and I can do it on a normal bike, but by the time I get to work, I would be very sweaty, and my workplace does not have any showers for staff, so it would be a real problem because I would then have to do a full day of work, and that would not be good, especially in the summer. So the electric bike really helps. It means that I can get there and I'm not a sweaty mess. I can be warm because often, particularly on the way back home, I turn the assistance down to give myself a little bit more of a workout. But again, a lot of it depends on how far your commute is, how much range your bike has, all those sorts of things that will really help you make a decision as to which bike you're going to go for. Now, how much do they cost? Well, this is very open-ended. Much like many things in this world, how much do you want to spend? So they can start anywhere from £600 to £700. What you will find is cheaper bikes will have cheaper components, just like in normal bikes, but they'll also have smaller batteries. So the motors are much of a muchness generally. They're all about the same. However, the actual batteries make a big difference. And to give you a bit of an idea of my bike that I've got, my bike is what probably most people have never heard of the brand. It's a brand called Oxygen, and it's the E-Mate. And I'll do a walk around a little bit later on in the video when we go out, and I'll try and record that a bit later on. And the E-Mate is a hardtail bike. Okay, so it's got front suspension, it's got a solid rear suspension, so there's no moving parts at the back. It's a 26-inch wheel bike, so it looks very much like a mountain bike. It's got mud guards that are fitted at the factory. It's got a pannier rack, so it's really useful for carrying your stuff to and from work. And it's got a massive battery. It's got a 15.5 amp hour battery. Now, if you don't know what amp hours are, or watt hours, or anything like that, don't worry, okay? Because it's quite confusing to start with. The general gist is that most electric bikes will use either 36 to 48 to 52 volts in terms of voltage, and they will have an amp hour rating on their battery. Now, if you times that voltage by the amp hour, that will give you a watt hour output. In other words, how far the battery will take you. So a higher voltage with a higher ampage will result in a higher watt hour output. And obviously the higher it is, the further you can go before you run out of energy. So mine runs at 37 volts at 15.5 amp hours. So that is quite a considerable battery. It's very heavy. It's about 4 kilos in weight. So it's, you know, half the weight of my racing bike, my carbon fiber racing bike, just on the battery. So it's really heavy, and the wheels are quite heavy and the hub motor is quite heavy. So altogether, the bike comes in at quite a heavy, about 23 kilos, I think it is, give or take. And that 15.5 amp hour battery will get me a range of distances. If I only use the throttle, which I can do on mine because I have a throttle fitted, or I just pedal lightly and allow the bike to carry me, that will get me around 30 odd miles, 32 miles, which is pretty good considering that I'm not really pedaling. If I pedal quite a lot and I turn the assistance down and I coast and that sort of stuff, just like fuel saving when you're in a car or on a bike, I can get anywhere up to 70 miles. And that is a long way on a push bike, right? That is a long way. Now, recharging it obviously takes quite a long time. If it's flat, it will take about 5 to 6 hours to charge. But the thing is most of the time it's never flat. So I do 11 miles to work and I plug the charger in when I get to work, charge it up, takes about 2.5 to 3 hours. And then when I get home, I plug it in again. And those lithium batteries don't mind that. They don't mind constantly being plugged in. They'd rather that than being drained to empty. It's not good for them to go right down to an empty battery. So like I say, it's a effectively a 250 watt motor with a 15.5 amp hour battery pack. And it's just nice because you have that ability to use the throttle and use the power assisted pedaling if you want to. Mine doesn't have regenerative braking, so it doesn't put power back in when I brake. So newer models, some of them do have that, and you probably get about 10% of your energy back into your battery from your braking. But it's not worth spending a load more just to get that. I suppose it might reduce the wear and tear on your brake pads and discs and stuff like that. There's a couple of things that I've done to the bike to make it a little bit more unique to me, and that has made it a bit more useful for me on a commute and stuff like that. And I'll go through those when I do a walk around and I do a ride along for you. But specifically, it uses cable disc brakes. Now, on all of my other bikes, I have hydraulic disc brakes. But one of the things that I liked about the cable disc brakes on this was that they're very, very simple to work on. And actually, I upgraded the front disc brake from, I think it was a 160mm front disc to a 200mm Avid BB7. And the stopping performance on that is phenomenal. It will stop amazingly quick. I can lock the front wheel. It's that hard, you know, if I brake that hard. So it does really, really help. You do still have gears, just like a normal bike. So on mine, it's a relatively simple setup. Single cog on the front, 7-speed on the back. And I'll go through that, like I say, when I do the walk around. The front suspension helps iron out the bumps. I've got a suspension seat post and just a few other bits and bobs that just make my life a little bit more comfortable as I'm going through. So really, the idea is that you have a much more pleasant experience when you're riding an e-bike. There are a few people that might argue that it's cheating and that it's, you know, it's not your own power that you're going under. But the argument is that you're still pedaling, you're still outside getting some fresh air. And if it makes cycling more accessible to people and being on two wheels in places like old railway tracks or, you know, multi-purpose cycle trails and stuff like that, those are places that we like to enjoy two-wheel travel. Okay, and I like being on two wheels. Doesn't matter whether it's motorized or unmotorized, or whether it's a scooter, a motorbike, or a push bike or an electric bike. I don't mind. I like being on two wheels. I like that feeling. So there's a few things. Obviously, a couple of considerations are you do get a little bit, if you had a smaller battery, you might have that range anxiety that a lot of electric car owners feel, where you think you might run out of power and you'd be worried that you get stuck somewhere. If that is the case, believe it or not, there are actually companies that offer breakdown cover for e-bikes now. And when I took my insurance out for the bike the first year I had it, it actually included roadside assistance. So if I ran out of charge, I could actually phone them out. I never ran out of charge, and I just made sure that I topped it up. And even if you carry the charger with you, because it's not huge, the advantage of it is that most places, if you go somewhere and you say, is it okay if I just plug this in? Most of the time, they're more than happy to just let you top up your battery for a couple of hours or even like half an hour whilst you're having a coffee and a cake or whatever. So absolutely fine. Cost. It does come down to cost. And mine was about £1,000, give or take, but I bought it through like a cycle to work scheme, so it did make it a little bit cheaper. I saved effectively the tax on it, and they are expensive. Okay, like they're more expensive than a normal bike, but you are getting more bike for your money, and you are also getting something that's had to be engineered a little bit more than a standard bike. So I'm not going to dictate what you should buy. I'm giving you an idea of why people buy them and why I bought one. And then what we'll do is we'll go for a little ride along and a little walk around, and hopefully this video will be useful, because some people might be looking at, well, in the summer months, I don't always want to have to ride scooter, motorbike, whatever, or use the car. Or it might be that you're in the process of thinking, well, what do I use instead of the car? And if your commute is really, really small, and it's say like 3 to 5 miles, an electric bike could really be the answer, because you get as wet on a motorbike and you'll go probably the same speed to work on a scooter or a motorbike if you're only doing 3 to 5 miles, because by the time you've got it out, levered up, put all of your stuff on, and then gone down the road, you're already 5 minutes down the road probably on a push bike with an electric motor. And then when you get to work, you just either take it inside because it's a lot smaller and lighter, or you chain it up in the normal cycle stand area. And again, there's no tax, and I know tax is cheaper on motorcycles and scooters anyway, but there's no tax, there's no insurance that you need, there's no license regulations, so you don't need to do a CBT or a full license or an A1 or anything like that. So all those licensing requirements that you have, they just wash away, and it's a lot cheaper to run than a scooter or a motorbike. So yeah, I think it's time that we had a look around the bike and go for a little ride along, just so you can see what it's like. So here we go.
Right then, so I don't know how well you can hear me. Woo! Right then, this is a quick walk around of the Oxygen E-Mate City. So it's the standard bike, and I've not done a huge amount to it, but there are a few notable differences that perhaps might be worth talking about. First of which, I've put customised bar ends on, so you can see those there. They're adjustable. I've also put on these travel contact Continental tyres, which instead of knobbly tyres, they have the flat surface here. Other than that, I've also added, like I mentioned in the video earlier, the suspension seat post. Makes a big difference. I've added a quad lock phone mounting mount onto this little riser bar so that my phone can go here with sat nav on. And other than that, the only other thing is the air sound air horn, which is very loud, to give you an idea. Everything else is pretty standard. Added panniers onto it. The rack was already there, and other than that really, I've changed the pedals for some more substantial ones, but everything else is as it was. The lights come as standard. They run off the cycle computer, and the cycle computer itself, you can see here, gives you an assistance level, a battery readout. So I've just done about, I don't know, 4 miles maybe, something like that, and the battery's not even registering below 1 bar yet in terms of one off. So it's a really good bike. Some of the footage from when I rode down I'll use later on and intersperse it maybe in the video. It's really noisy because it's really windy today, so I'm not sure you'll get much in the way of quality footage. But yeah, I hope that helps. I'll do some more ride-alongs and stuff like that. And until next time, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe for me. Until next time, bye for now.